Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Amanda Barr, and I'm so excited you're joining us today. I have quite the shifter with us. You're going to want to listen all the way through on this one. I've got Evan Jackson. He's a thought leader working at the intersection of community engagement and entrepreneurship. As the 22-year-old founder of Intus Care, a geriatric-focused healthcare technology startup, he's raised more than $2 million in funding to develop the software solutions for elderly care organizations. As an undergraduate student at Brown University, Evan is passionate about empowering communities around him and serves as the international undergraduate president of Kappa Alpha Psi and vice chairman of the board of Quispicanchi Project. And you can restate that for me because I think I said it wrong, but welcome to the show, Evan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
How do we say the project again so we can clear that one up?
The Quispicanchi Project.
There it is. There it is. Well, let's dive in, Evan. I'd love to hear more about you. You've got an incredible story. You're starting so young. I've got so many questions today. So dive in, catch us up to where you are today.
Man, well, once again, thank you so much for having me. So I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. Spent my time growing up there. Went to a Jesuit high school out there. Ended up transitioning up to Brown University in Rhode Island, where I currently am. Studying religious studies here. So really wanted to do something that I was more passionate about, something that I felt like, would expand the way that I think, the way that I approach problems and the way that I solve those problems. While at Brown during my sophomore year, I founded Intus Care. Just like you said, it's a healthcare technology company really focused on empowering geriatric care organizations through data. So essentially, we've gotten really good at making predictions based on risk. So we can look at the entirety of a patient's health history and let a nursing home or a geriatric care organization know when that patient's going to go to the hospital. Why are they going to go to the hospital? When are they going to fall? When are they going to acquire things like or chronic diseases like diabetes and chronic kidney disease? So really the whole gambit of risk analytics we provide to these organizations. In these 2 years that we've been working on the company, raised almost $2.5 million now, going into an additional funding round. And now serving almost 60,000 patients across the country. So really, really excited about our growth there. Additionally, like you said, I'm really passionate about making a difference in the community as well. Don't want to be one-sided. And I think that's something I learned through my education, through my family, and, now studying religious studies and seeing the way that people impact people. And that's something that I really want to be involved in. So I serve as the vice chairman of 2 international nonprofits, one being Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and then as well as the Quispicanchi Project, where I get to make more of an international impact.
And you're at what age now? I love it.
22.
22
and a half now. Just turned 22.
Right. You're almost on your way to 23.
Almost on my way.
Incredible. So you've got so many things happening. I got to ask the question, how do you do it all? And you're in school. How are you balancing your day? I mean, a lot of companies are out there, founders, they're going, I can't manage my time. So how are you doing it? Just want to know.
Definitely early mornings and late nights, but I think really the key here is prioritization. I think that a lot of people get caught up in everything, and I like to take things in smaller bite-sized pieces. So I might say, these are the things that are most important to me today. I think that one thing that people could do a better job of, is something I really try to focus on, is prioritizing every day. So, one day, the nonprofits might be the most important to me. One day, Kappa Alpha Psi might be most important to me. One day, Intus might be most important to me. And really, it's just based on deadline, what's most important and what I need to get done. And I think that by approaching it in that way, it allows me to, take things in bite-sized chunks and accomplish what I have to get done now.
How did you get to that mindset? Because was this something that you grew up with, family, mentors? How did you get to that point at this stage of your career and school and all that you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. I think my family definitely instilled, looking at things in this way. Both of my parents worked and they worked really hard, and that's the way they approach things. Also, I played football throughout my life and even into college. And so I think that approaching things from that perspective definitely changed the way that I thought, especially when I got to college and the time commitment on the football side and the school side grew to be a lot larger. And really, it required me to figure out what is the most efficient way to get from point A to point B. And I think that's something that not only applied when I was playing football and in school, but now, working on this company and working on these nonprofits, it's something that's applicable to my everyday.
Mm. So you said college athletes. I'm a big fan. We are connected to college athletes on a few different levels. What would you tell the college athletes out there? I hear a lot of people like they go into the sport and that's what they're lasered on. But I think there's this conversation that isn't talked about. And that's people that have really big passions in life to do things outside of the sport and that they do have the skills and actually that athletes are trained for this type of work that is die hard, got to stick through it, got to do it when no results are being seen when you're doing it. It's later down the road. So what would you say to those athletes or people that are in that space, or even those that think that? What would you tell them?
Man, that's a great question. And it's a hard question. I think that there's a lot of beautiful things that come with being an athlete and a lot of things that you really have to think through and process through. So I think when you're an athlete, especially at a high level, it creates a culture of commitment. It creates a culture of hard work. It creates a commitment of dedication. But what sometimes gets lost in there is really taking the time to figure out what's best for you and really what makes sense for your life and where your passions lie. And I think, once you really get into it, especially, at a high school and college level, it's hard to take a step back and say, maybe this isn't the right thing for me, or maybe this shouldn't be my priority at this time. And that's what I had to do my sophomore year when I left football. And that's when, we started Intus Care. And that was a really, really hard decision. Looking back on it now in hindsight, I can easily say that was 110% the best decision I could have ever made. But when you're in it, you're in that bond with your teammates, you're learning how to work hard, be dedicated. It's hard to differentiate between what is you not having the commitment or dedication you need to be successful, and what is you actually trying to figure out what makes sense and what's best for your life. And for me, I made the right decision. I walked away. But what I learned is that I could still take that same dedication and commitment that I was learning throughout my life and apply it to this new space. And I think that, by taking it through that approach, I didn't lose that skill set that I acquired in football, but instead I just applied it to something new.
Yeah. Now that my show is all about shifting, that's a big shift, right? To go from playing sports to a startup in college. So tell me, what fears did you face? What was going on in the head of when you were thinking, I'm going to open a geriatric-based company and I'm 22 years old, and what was going through your mind? What were you thinking?
So there were quite a few thoughts there. So I think the first and most immediate, especially after leaving football, is identity. Who am I? Who do I want to be? I think that, people, whether it's football, whether it's sports, whether it's career, people get, and myself included, get very caught up in what is my identity and who am I? And so for me, my entire life, my identity was wrapped up in football. I'm football, I'm the running back, I play football. And so that was the first really difficult thing. And when I initially left football, this was when Intus was in its early stages, really much more likely to be unsuccessful than successful. And stepping away and feeling almost naked to an extent was scary. That was really challenging. I went from Evan, the football player, to just Evan. And that was really hard. But at the same time, it forced me to figure out how to stand on my own and be confident in the work that I was doing. And I think that was the first fear that I had. The second, I would say, was at the point where, I had to make the decision to take a step away from school. And that was really, really challenging for a few different reasons. Not only, for myself personally, but externally, it's hard to get past well, what are people going to think? What are people in my neighborhood going to think when they find, oh, Evan left school, what is he doing? And not everyone can always understand the work that you're trying to do. No one's going to understand that work that you're doing more than yourself. And so it gets hard in those conversations when you go back home for Thanksgiving or Christmas and the folks around are saying, so what are you doing? Like, are you in school? How's it going? It's like, well, not really. And that was really, really tough. But once again, I think it takes a lot of courage to really take what's yours and say, this is what's best for me. Because it's so hard to ignore what the external folks are saying. But I do believe that the people who are most in your corner will always support you and understand the decisions and help you make the decisions that make the most sense for you. And those are the two times I would say that I was more, afraid of the outcome and what folks might think.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I don't think a lot of people, some feel comfortable sharing that and some don't, that they actually have those fears, what other people will think of them. But thank you for kind of bringing that out and letting other people, I think that conversation can continue on. And it's okay to share and to go against the grain a little bit on your passions. And it doesn't make sense. And unfortunately, we connect the dots backwards. And then you go,
Right.
nice job, Evan. Now that you've
Right.
raised $2 million. And but in the
Right.
mix, nobody can see that because we're not there yet. So you came up with this idea. And where did it come from? What pain or problem were you seeing in your world that you said, you know what, Intus Care is what I want to create?
Yeah, no, great question. So for me personally, my background is in healthcare and finance. So I came from a family of nurses, a family of geriatric nurses, and I didn't know too much about the work that they were doing besides that they were really tired and worked really long hours. And so I knew that was going on there. When I was in high school, I ended up interning with a great friend and mentor, Neelan Youngblood, out in the Dallas area. He's the CEO of Pharos Capital, which is a healthcare private equity company, which really focused a lot of their investments in the long-term care space. So I got to see from more of a back office perspective, what are the financials going into running a nursing home or an assisted living facility? What are the inefficiencies from a financial perspective that can be fixed, that can be solved? And so when I was originally going to Brown, I still had that big interest on the financial space. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do in the healthcare space until I met a buddy and close friend of mine, Robbie Felton, who's a co-founder at the company, who grew up in the geriatric care space. So his mom was a geriatric social worker, worked her way up to become a center manager and now the executive director of a geriatric care facility. And he really recognized those inefficiencies. And so we got together and we said, okay, we don't know what we want to do, have no idea where we want to take this, but we know there's a whole lot of room for innovation in the geriatric community. And so what we did is we just started researching. We read as much literature as we could. We talked to as many people as we could. So we got to a point where we realized if we really, really want to do this, we have to go all in. And so at that point, we decided to leave school. We actually packed our bags and moved into Robbie's mom's basement and went to work with her every day, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, working in these geriatric care facilities, got to work with her friends in the space as well. Really getting to know the nurses, really getting to know the administrators, but at the end of the day, really getting to know the patients who the care is impacting. And at that point, what we realized over the 5 or 6 months that we were working there is that there was just an immense need for data. A lot of these problems could be solved by taking the same techniques that are applied in the social media space or in news, whatever it might be, taking these same principles of machine learning, AI, and data, and applying them to a space that hadn't seen that sort of innovation. And so that's exactly what we did. Came in there, started working last summer, or started building the software last summer. By the end of the summer, we had a pilot, and once again, now up to 60,000 patients.
Nice. And you've been fundraising and growing. So I got to ask, can you do your 1 30-second pitch that you have probably mastered over and over because you've been talking to a lot of people? I might put you on the hot seat.
You got my clock?
Okay, let's go.
So Intus Care is a healthcare technology organization focused on providing data analytics to geriatric communities. Really, the way we do this is we pull in all of a patient's health history, whether that be their active conditions, their social determinants of health. We track even down to zip code to identify all the areas that a patient has risk. So we can predict the risk of a patient for hospitalizations, readmissions, the onset of chronic disease, falls, really you name it, we predict it. But the really special thing is we provide it in a way that's actionable to the frontline staff. We provide these insights in a way that the nurses, the clinicians, the CNAs, really you name it, can actually apply the data that they're seeing into their day-to-day care.
Woo. I think you got that. It was definitely less than a minute.
Definitely less than a minute. Might have been 32, 33, but I was close.
I love it. I love it. So what's the journey? What would you tell people? Because you have now coming from sports, right? Being a football player, starting a startup, and now fundraising. What would you tell those that are looking at their dreams and saying, you know what, if I only had $1 million, if I only had $2 million, what would you tell them in that process and in your experience?
Yeah, I would tell folks in that way that you have to stop thinking of things as why me and turn it into why not me. And really, that's the way you have to look at it. I think a big hurdle for me and a ledge I had to step off of was really looking at these successful people that I saw all around me in the news and the media and asking, what is really the difference between them and me? And it's not much. And except for the fact that they were willing to take the first step and start walking and trying and trying and trying. And that was the key. I tell people all the time that Intus Care was not what it is today 2 years ago, not even close. It really wasn't even a conception. And even when we got to the first stage of ideation, it wasn't even close to where we are today, but we took that first step and we kept on walking and we kept on walking. And if you're not willing to take risks, then you'll never be in a position to say, like, I do have this $1 million. What am I going to do with it?
I love it. I love it. I mean, consistency. I'm in the marketing space, work with business consulting, and I say, you want a magic, nugget for your marketing or magic nugget for your business. And it's testing and it is growing and it is consistency. And I think that you are definitely in line with that. Is you've got to move with it. You've got to be flexible. What would you say in terms of your marketing? How are you getting this out there? What has been your way? Because I know a lot of people say, well, how do I get more customers? Your company's brand new. Oh, you got the funding. So you got money to be able to do this. So how have you strategically market yourself and how did you go about that strategy?
Great question. So for us, really, we took a very relational marketing approach. I think that one thing that's pretty different about the geriatric care space is there's not a lot of great ways through traditional marketing streams, whether that be online, et cetera, to get your product in front of folks who are spending 24/7 caring for patients. They're not looking at these different channels. So for us, it really took time to gradually build these relationships, build the trust with our existing organizations to the point where they believed in us so much that they began to become the best marketers for us. So they would go to their friends, the people they knew in the space, like, hey, Intus Care changed the whole way that we're looking at data, changed the whole way we're thinking about solving problems at our organization. You need to get on this. And that's how we gradually increased our patient total in the organizations that we work with.
Awesome. I love that kind of marketing. I mean, word of mouth is
It's
king
Yeah.
when you can master it. And you've got a real problem solution fit. And that's incredible. Our time is already like we could talk for hours. I mean, you've got so much
Wow.
going on here, but I'd love to, I always like to ask at the end, what do you wish everybody knew? I'll ask you one more question because I just want to have a little bit more from you. But what do you wish everybody knew about what you do and about what you're about? What do you wish they knew?
Hmm. I want people to know that I'm a typical, regular person who's just been willing to take the first step. And really, that's all it is. I'm working in a space dominated by nurses and MDs and professionals, and I don't even have my college degree yet. And let alone in the healthcare space. I'm studying religious studies, but I care about people. I care about solving important problems. I care about solving problems that are making direct impact on people. And that's what I do. And that's how I go about everything I do, whether it's my work in Intus, whether that's my work on the boards that I sit on, whether that's the way I interact with people on a daily basis. I think that having that core of people and the way I care about people and the way that I interact with people and the way I love people as the focus of what I do always is going to radiate into the steps that I take. And despite being someone who doesn't have, the full formal education, and despite being someone who doesn't have the 20 years of experience and training, it's really reflected in the success I've had in all aspects of my life.
Awesome. Incredible. I mean, it shines out of you and you're just getting started. So I'd love to give you a few minutes just to share anything you would like to talk about. I know you've got organization and projects and you're on the boards, and I'd just love to give you a moment to share whatever you'd like to share with our audience that you think would touch them, ways they can get involved with you, just what's happening in your world. I know I'm going to ask you how they can touch base with you, but this is really about kind of what you want to share. So I'm going to give you the floor. It's all yours.
Awesome. In terms of a few ways that people can get involved and reach out, I'm always looking to talk to people in the healthcare space. I think across the board, just getting a really great understanding of the different models of care, the different ways people are looking at providing care is always going to be very informative for me in the way that we grow. Additionally, any folks working in the investment space or the startup space, always looking to have a conversation, build my network of mentors and my my thought bubble, to make sure that I'm getting a diverse set of opinions and understanding as I continue to grow. On the nonprofit side, that's somewhere where I'm interested in getting an even deeper involvement. Once again, I care about problems that I've seen, problems that are pertinent to me. I actually spent quite a bit of time in Peru, so that's why I wanted to get involved in that space on the Quispicanchi Project, but always looking to get involved with impactful projects that are going to directly impact people. So if anyone has any nonprofit work that they're doing, anything they want to talk about, I'm on that end, always happy to have the conversation. Additionally, we're going into a fundraising period for the Quispicanchi Project. So if you're someone who's interested or passionate about that region of the world, we'd love to have a conversation and see how you can get involved.
Awesome. So how do they get in touch with you, Evan? What's the best way?
So the best way to get in touch with me is through my email. My email is evan@intus, INTUS, .care, CARE. Additionally, you can reach me via LinkedIn, just Evan Jackson. If you search up Evan Jackson Intus Care, it'll pop up, or through Instagram. My Instagram is ejackson.1, ejackson.1.
Awesome. Evan, it's been such a pleasure, such an inspiration. And thanks for going into the hot seat on your 30-second pitch. I know you weren't expecting that, but it's been great. And I hope those of you that are listening here today and watching, that you'll reach out to Evan, find out what he's doing, get involved. If you're in the Medicare or medical space and geriatrics, working with him, get in touch if you don't already have the system. If you do, awesome. Keep sharing the word. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
Yeah. And for all those listening, if you're looking for more incredible stories like this, we're shooting these podcasts every week and sharing it out with the world, helping people shift both your life and business forward. And if you got an incredible story, reach out to me so I can get you on here. And for all those listening, keep on the move.